Mayor, council members, thank you very much for the opportunity to come and make a presentation to you tonight. We appreciate the invitation. And it has been some time since we have been here, so we always like to keep close contact with the municipalities in and near where we're operating. So this is timely from our perspective. I thought what I might do, if it's okay, is just to, because of the passage of time since we've last been here, do a little bit of a review of TimberWest and what the company has been up to at a sort of a high level, and then we can spend a bit of time talking about some of our plans in and around the immediate area of Cumberland. So with that, we hope to provide some information about TimberWest activities, to introduce TimberWest's evolving role as a land manager, and to reaffirm TimberWest's commitment to safety, environment, and sustainable economic contributions. Unfortunately for the audience, you can't see the presentation that's in front of the Mayor and Council, but there's a map there that shows the land holdings of TimberWest and the licenses that we have. Basically, from Campbell River south on that map is the light green area shaded is the private lands that TimberWest holds. And the yellow and orange areas to the north is tree farm license and forest licenses that TimberWest manages on Crown land. TimberWest is the largest owner of private land in Western Canada, and the land that we have is something about 230,000 hectares of land. Most of the log production that we have is sold on the open market. The company harvests mainly second growth, both of private and public lands, and leads the industry in terms of mechanized harvesting. We've also identified about 38,000 hectares of land of the total land base that has been identified as having greater potential as real estate properties, or what's often referred to as higher and better use lands. The company holds some undersurface rights as well relating to the land base and the private land. TimberWest, as of January 2005, runs fully contracted harvesting operations, but we remain committed to operating in terms of the environmental responsibility, the safety standards, and as an economic contributor on Vancouver Drive. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple minutes. On the forestry or the silviculture side of things, we have done and continue to do quite a bit of fairly intensive forest management activities, including planting somewhere in the range of 5 to 6 million trees annually. A large portion of those trees are from our mountain seed orchard, or the seed is, which is in where over the years we have selected some of the best trees growing on the land base and put them in a seed orchard to provide high quality seed for reforestation purposes. And currently the benefit of that is about a 2 to 12% increase in annual harvest or annual production from areas that are planted with those seedlings. We also, on average, spend about $1 million a year on fertilization projects, and we practice vegetation management in areas where brush and competing vegetation is an issue in terms of establishing the plantations. On the stewardship end of things, that includes a large range of activities we're involved in to protect biodiversity, fisheries, wildlife habitat, and water quality. For us, that means working with communities and partnering with conservation organizations. We're focused on minimizing losses and protecting health of the TimberWest forest resources. And specifically, and I know of interest to the council here, is the watershed management and how we manage the watersheds. We have hydrology specialists that review and approve all harvest plans in community water supply areas and licensed domestic water supply areas. Watershed management monitoring programs have operated successfully since they were initiated on the current basis in 1999. That includes ongoing field reviews and internal reporting of water quality issues in a watershed, and notification of any licensed users before we begin harvesting in areas like that. For our land management related to forestry, we certainly on the public lands manage according to the Forest Practices Code, which is now termed the Forest and Range Practices Act, and on private lands we come under the Private Land Forest Practices Regulations. But even though it's private land, there are certain considerations with respect to critical wildlife habitat, reforestation, water, fish, and soils management. TimberWest also has certification of its forestry activities under the Sustainable Forestry Initiative and under the ISO 14001 Environmental Management Systems. And these certifications are something that requires or is certified by a third-party independent auditor, which conducts audits on our operations on an annual basis. The land base, our core forest lands are almost 90%, 89% of the total holdings of TimberWest, and we are interested in managing those lands from a perspective of site productivity, soils and terrain, the ecosystems and environmental values that exist on those lands, fisheries and wildlife. On the non-core lands, they often tend to be of lower site productivity, close to urban containment areas, often having real estate values or recreational development potential, or near transportation corridors, and often have higher value than straight forest land. In 2006, TimberWest conducted a comprehensive review of its private forest lands. And that's where we identified the 38,000 hectares of land that was identified as having development potential. Starting in 2007, TimberWest has implemented this higher and better use land program on identified lands in a 15-year time frame. Other partnerships that we work with on our land base include the Nature Conservancy of Canada, the Environment Recovery Foundation, the Zip Sound Foundation, the Nature Trust of BC, and some other partnerships including Ducks Unlimited, small hatcheries, and stream keepers groups. With respect to the economic contributions that TimberWest has, if we look at Vancouver Island as a whole, and it's pretty hard to break these figures down to each community, but for Vancouver Island as a whole, what TimberWest pays in wages and salaries equates to about $30 million. To the contractors that work for us, about $164 million. Materials and supplies and services that we purchase, $62 million. Stumpage fees, $9 million, and property taxes, about $7.5 million, for a total of $272 million, a little bit over. And this is for 2006. So those are payments that go out from TimberWest and its activities into the Vancouver Island economy. Just at the next page, I put an ortho photo of the Cumberland area, and indicating the blue lines on that photo are the sub-basins of watersheds, and those are the areas where we would do this hydrological assessment in areas when we're active. So you can see the village of Cumberland there, and you can see the different, any totally contained blue line area would be considered a total sub-basin watershed, and that would be where we would do detailed analysis with respect to any future harvesting activities. So that is that part of the presentation. If there's any questions on that, I would certainly be happy to answer them, or we could talk a little bit about what our plans are looking at going into 2008 with respect to particularly the watershed that supplies the village of Cumberland, which I know is of interest to me. But if there's any other questions in the previous part, I'd be happy to.
I do have one question.
Okay.
It says in here that approximately 38,000 hectares of the total land base has been identified for potential real estate. Do you have a map of where that potential is?
I don't have one with me, I'm sorry to say, and those are pretty broad areas, but you'll know where some of them are because we have some of them under auction right now. You've probably heard about those, and largest one close to here is the Caves Lake area, which is several thousand hectares. In fact, that's the biggest individual parcel, and many of the other ones are much smaller pieces. There's some down in the Port Renfrew area. There is one parcel, I don't believe it's in the auction, but it is listed for sale right now, right beside Cumberland. It's that kind of triangular shaped piece, just the sort of southeast of town there.
Oh, yeah.
So, we'd be happy to talk to anybody after the meeting.
And that's the only potential one for now?
That's within this map area for this point in time. Having said that, what we're talking about when we say 38,000 hectares, we're also talking about a 15-year time horizon.
Mm-hmm.
So certainly what we can tell you today may change over time, and that kind of thing. And a lot of that will depend on what's going on in a geographic area in terms of town expansion or recreational development or other interests in land. So it's pretty hard to give you a lot of detail that will be in place for the next 15 years, although we do have broad areas that we look at.
What criteria do you use to come up with that reason why that would be go in the open market? You must have
This particular one
Yeah.
here, or, well, if you look at that one, it's a small, irregular, and somewhat isolated parcel of land from our main core lands, which tend to be, as you move further south, you see there are contiguous blocks of land from a forest management point of view and operations point of view. They make quite a bit more sense for us in the long term for forestry management purposes. A small isolated piece like that, very close to town, is one that is likely to have pressures for other uses at some point in time. So that would be the main driver in that particular instance.
Okay, thank you.
Steve, you've got all these yellow lines, what do they depict?
Those are TimberWest
It's all
parcels of
TimberWest?
land, so those are the lands that TimberWest owns, the things the pieces that are surrounded by yellow. Now, where you have inside the around some of the lakes there, those are pieces that are exclusions from our land, I believe, where there's a separate parcel around the lakes and the watershed.
Yeah, okay. But I see a block here, I guess I forget what it is, it's up by Stevens Lake anyway. And of course, the village does have the water lakes, and they have 100 and some odd acres all the way down to Comox Creek or Putney Creek.
Yeah, and
whatever they wanna
that's
call
shown
it.
on the map there. That's that
Yeah.
little wide piece along the creek there. So,
The piece that you're talking about logging, where is that situated?
that, well, I should
Maybe
ask.
if we could hear this, so we were just gonna talk about that.
Oh, okay.
You said, didn't you?
Yeah, that was the next part of our
Plans?
presentation.
Okay,
Maybe we could hear
all
that
right,
and then have
good,
the
okay.
questions.
So I brought Gary Lawson and Rick Jacquard with me, who are planners in the operation here in this area, and I'll invite Gary to come up and talk about some of the 2008 plans that we have specifically.
Hello. So for 2008, in the what we call the Trent area, we've got 4 cut blocks. 2 of them are in the lower Trent, down near the highway, and then there's 2 of them in sort of the middle of the watershed. There's one just along both of them are near Cumberland Creek. One's just downstream of Hamilton Lake and above the reservoir that's below that. And the second one is farther down Cumberland Creek, and that is the one that bike trail Bucket of Blood runs through. We've run them both through our hydrologic review. We've modified the one to make it compliant with that. The one block now is 35 hectares with about 9,000 cubic meters in it, and the other one's about 29 hectares with about 8,000 meters in it. The blocks in the lower Trent, they're roaded now, and we would probably be logging them in April or May. The ones in the around the bike trail and in around Hamilton Lake would probably be starting to build road in about April, logging early summer.
With respect to the bike trail and that, we have been in conversation with Mr. Grasby. He's written us a letter, and we actually met him a couple Fridays ago in Stan Hagen's office, looking at the interest that he had in terms of the biking interests, and we talked about the interest that we had as the landowners and with our harvest plans and that. And so we spent quite a bit of time discussing the interest that he had expressed and the concerns that we had with respect to things like liability and dealing with some of those, the land use planning for that particular block and the business interests that we have, of course. And so it actually was a pretty good discussion, I felt. I think that we each had a better understanding of each other's interests. At the end of that, we have asked Mr. Grasby to take a look at some of the issues with respect to covering off some of the liability interests, and also looking at the actual block and trail locations and see if there's some opportunities to incorporate some of the trail system into existing reserves, that kind of thing. So it's certainly not something that we've come to a completion on in terms of what he's proposing or addressing some of the liability concerns and that sort of thing, but it is a work in action is what I could characterize it as at this point.
Yeah, questions? Okay.
What, sorry, quick.
I have a couple of questions. First of all, are you obliged to inform the municipality whose water supply happens to be on your land when you're planning to log?
We do that, and we have done that in the past, and we certainly will be doing that as we move forward. It's a notification. Usually there's the requirement is a notification, and we have sent letters in the past, and we're talking to you about it this evening. But
because we approached you, I wondered whether you were intending to.
Oh, absolutely, yes. Usually we get around to doing that at the beginning of the year. We look at our plans for that particular year, whatever it is, and say, okay, here's something in Cumberland area. We will send off a letter and that, but you kind of beat us to the punch in this one, so we're happy to come and talk with you with respect to that.
And the second question, I'm very interested in the sustainable forestry and your certification. Does that mean that you'll be selection harvesting up there, or will you be clear cutting?
There's a variety of different harvest systems that we can use. Gary didn't get into that, the specifics of that. I believe there'll be some reserves, but it will be a clear cut system.
It's a clear cut with reserves. The one block would meet the definition of partial retention.
And that's considered sustainable harvesting?
Yes, yeah. I mean, we get into a large topic here. We start talking about sustainability, but as defined by the certification, the sustainability is the ability to continue to have those lands in productive forests, and most of these lands have a high component of fir in them, and actually clear cutting or opening up the stand is a good way to regenerate a good fir crop over the long term and into the future.
And just one more question. Will you be using fertilizer? You mentioned using fertilizer. Would that be used up here when you're clear cutting? I'm concerned about the water.
Not during the harvest plan. If and when we do fertilization, there are very specific criteria that we follow with respect to that in terms of buffering along creekways and that sort of thing. We would probably take a extra close look at that, obviously because of the watershed issues and that sort of thing. I can't tell you that we will fertilize or we won't fertilize. The fertilization that we do tends to be what we call late rotation fertilization, which means that it's done somewhere in the 5 to 10 years prior to the final harvest. So in this case, where we're about to harvest an area, it wouldn't be even considered until the trees were, say,
40, 50, 60 years old at the
So there wouldn't
earliest.
be the concern of it getting into our water supply because.
Not for 40, 50, or 60 years, and I don't know what the rules will be by then on these particular couple.
Yeah, I was wondering, I know previous years, we had a couple of people would come up here, Steve Lackey, an environmental technician and such. And we've had, basically, I know when I was involved some time ago, we expressed concern about the roads going through our watershed, and they were really good. The guys, they fixed the roads so they wouldn't be dust all over and such. But what I was wondering is, this map here is pretty tight. Is there any chance to get a map so that we can use it as an overlay on top of? Because I'm really concerned in this area was how close we are to our water system. Because as you know, we own land up there too. We've got about 500 acres up there. And I'm just saying this for me. If we wanted to protect a piece of, maybe we may, and I don't know, interested in making a land swap, providing, you know, the merchantable timber was equal, because we did it with Pacific Logging, I think you're aware of that. But you know, look at this map,
Well,
really
the
tells me an awful lot.
the intent of that map was not to,
Yeah, I know that.
not to be making measurements off of that. was
But
to
you know,
be
you've
kind of
got
the
some
scope
good
of
ones
it.
in.
Yeah.
Could we get a hold of them
What
sometime?
scale is a working scale that you would use?
We don't have our, where's our plan? Not here? Sorry, I haven't got that. We can get in touch with you.
Yeah, why don't you, I've left some cards there, why don't you give me a call and, with some of that, I mean, I'm sure we can get you a map that shows where our land holdings are, that's at a larger scale than that. You know, if that's, helpful to you.
With your logging blocks, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, what we can do when we do our notification, we'll send the map with the blocks on them.
Thank you.
But scale would be good to know what scale would be a good scale for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have two questions. One, will you be meeting again with Jeremy, or is that the end of the discussion?
Well, I anticipate that we will be. The way we left the meeting was that he was gonna go out and look for some opportunities to talk to regional district and perhaps even this council again, I don't know, with regard to some of the discussions that we had, and most of those focused on, for the immediate term, the question of liability and liability insurance and how that might be covered for the general public and that sort of thing. So my understanding is he's going to do a little research into that and then get back to us. So I fully expect we'll have another meeting.
And what about the trail? Was there some understanding, are you still going to log in the area of the trail or not?
Well, we have a harvest block that is located, that the trail goes through right now. Jeremy is actually going to be looking at that in the context of where our plans are and see if there's maybe some opportunity to move some of the trail into the existing reserves that are planned and that sort of thing, so that there will be less conflict and that sort of thing. I mean, moving parts of the trail and that sort of thing. And the other thing is if that's not possible, that we can perhaps work with him in identifying the trail so it can be established after harvesting and minimizing the amount that goes through the harvesting. But we're really too early to say what those opportunities are, and that he was going to go out with the GPS unit and try and more accurately identify exactly where the trail is even at.
Okay. Okay. I'm sure you'll get many questions of Courtney in the regional district when you talk about the loading after the end of the lake.
That's
Okay,
what the
thanks.
meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I thought it was good. I thought that they represented what our discussions well. That you know, they do show a willingness to work with us, and that the ball is rolling. They identified the two issues that we spoke about in our meeting with Stan Hagen. First and foremost being liability. That's the concern, and that's liability for the general user. So that has to be addressed at the political level, I guess it is, municipal and or regional district, most likely. And second to that is operationally, and that's working with TimberWest Gary Lawson. He's the local planner, working with them to perhaps shift the boundary a little bit, include the trail in reserves, and failing that, they have said that they would open up the trail after harvesting again. So yeah, I think it was positive, and I think there were some good questions by council, so look forward to going from here.